Welcome, everybody. We are here to talk a little bit about our webinar called Managing Parent Expectations in Challenging Times. And we're happy to be here. And this is something that's very timely for us right now as we think about we're bringing our students back into our schools, but we still have a lot of changes that are going on in our world. And so how can we help our parents and help our students come back into school in a safe and positive environment? So I'm pleased to be here with you today. My name is Dr. Elise Matson Dite. I am the Chief Learning Officer for the Procedo Project that's sponsoring this webinar today. Before I came to the Procedo Project, I was the Director of Leadership Formation for the Office of Catholic Schools with the Archdiocese of Chicago. And I also served as a principal in the Archdiocese of Chicago at St. John Brebeuf School in Niles. And I was also a Catholic school teacher at Trinity High School in River Forest. So happy to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, Elise. I am Dr. Molly Cinnamon. I am the very proud principal of Pope John XXIII School, which is in Evanston, Illinois, part of the Chicago Archdiocese. Before I came to this role, I served as a music teacher in the public schools for 14 years, then became an administrator for 6 years in the public schools, took a little break from that for 2 years to teach principals at National Louis University, which is where I discovered the beauty of Catholic education. And I've been involved in Catholic education ever since, first as like an admin / music teacher at one school for 5 years before I found Pope John. And this is my 3rd year in this role. I'm very happy to be here and always happy to partner with Elise.
All right, great. And thank you, Molly, so much for being with us today. It's great to have such a wonderful principal perspective as we're talking about such an important topic today. So our learning objectives today for our webinar are to learn how to create a family culture and environment in our Catholic schools, learn multiple strategies for engaging parents and staff, and meeting individual parent needs regarding communications. So that's essentially what we're going to be talking about today. We'll also be talking a little bit about managing communications with faculty and staff as well. So today we're really going to discuss some strategies on how to create a family environment and culture in your school. And we wanted to begin the day today with a quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes about family from Pope Francis. Catholic schools really do have a unique, essential opportunity to build and transmit the faith to Catholic school students by building that culture of faith within the Catholic schools. And so, as we know, Catholic schools have that unique opportunity to expand the faith community. Members of the community take care of each other, and they help children and adults in the school learn more about the Catholic faith. And Catholic schools are places where teachers, families, and leaders can truly build and educate the whole child because they're able to discuss faith in conjunction with academics.
I would say that as someone who has been in the public sector for a long time, both as a student, as a teacher, and as a leader, and also my own children went through the public schools, when you then step into the Catholic schools and you realize what a gift this is to be able to discuss faith, to be able to pray alongside families, and to be able to pray alongside faculty members who are hurting or nurturing a loss of any kind, it really is a gift. And it's refreshing, like a breath of fresh air, especially with the type of work that we do in schools. Prayer is just a fabulous asset.
Absolutely. One of the best gifts that we have as Catholic school educators. Absolutely.
Agreed. Yep.
Absolutely. So school leaders really do have an opportunity to foster that family environment by hosting events and including families in routines and celebrations. And maintaining a positive social media presence can help foster a family environment, as can prayer, as we just talked about, within the community. And I can think of countless stories of generosity from my time as a Catholic school principal. People would reach out to me very frequently, concerned about a family who might have been going through a hardship, or sometimes anonymously provide gifts for families in need. So by finding ways to bring the community together, Catholic schools can really ensure that everyone feels like they're part of the community and larger family. And Molly, I know you've been really had a great opportunity to do that a lot this year in your school.
It is really significant, especially as events come back on the calendar. This past year, we were really careful, all of us throughout the Archdiocese, and thank heavens because it worked brilliantly. And then this year, we're starting to put a few events back on the calendar. And just this weekend, we had our first trunk or treat fundraiser for Halloween back on the calendar. We had a gorgeous day, which didn't hurt, but to see not only our current families who've been with us a long time really enjoying community and being back together, it was really exciting to see our new families that have joined us through the pandemic to not only participate, but really take the lead on some of these events. And I could just feel in the air that there was a sense of community and almost like a reassurance of some kind of normalcy that people have been craving.
Mhm. Absolutely. And we've been through over the past, the past year and a half or so, certainly some times of crises. And not only with the pandemic, but there's also other crises that happen during the school year within the Catholic schools. And families in Catholic schools often come together to really help and support each other during those times. And by fostering a family environment throughout the school year and within the school community, families are better able to support one another in times of crisis. And we touched on prayer earlier, but community prayer and positive relationships can result in an increased sense of connectedness during times of crisis. And often families simply want to help one another, and we want to make sure that we can give them opportunities for others in the community to support each other during any times that crises or hardships or anything occur. And I know you've had really great opportunities to do that with your families too, Molly, this year and over the past couple of years.
Yes, very much so. And I think that's, and again, when you have faith in your back pocket as kind of the cornerstone of everything that we do, especially at a time where we're really trying to, through experiences like Renew My Church and other things that our different church and parish and school communities are enduring, it's important for us to be creating places where families and children, students turn towards their faith in times of crisis rather than away. So that idea of welcoming families, being welcoming, that idea of encuentro and meeting people where they are on their journey and simply accompanying them through faith and through education is really paramount, especially right now.
Mhm. Yeah, we're going to talk about some ways that you've done that in the past and give people some practical suggestions on how to do that in
Sure.
just a minute.
Sounds good.
So we really want to work on taking a look at how we can engage parents during times of crisis. And building community really involves engaging them effectively and meeting their communication needs. And as you mentioned, Molly, really walking with them where they are. And so in our next section, we're going to talk about how we can effectively engage parents to foster that community environment.
Wonderful.
So many parents are on information overload. And we've heard, I think everybody's on information overload, but we've heard many people talk about the different platforms that they need to check multiple times a day to get information about their children. Parents may easily get confused and miss some information. And then there's also parents who may speak a language other than English. So how can we ensure that parents receive the information they need in a timely manner and avoid parents saying they didn't know about something or they didn't receive information about events? So what are some of the things that you've done in your school this year that's helped with communication?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very fortunate to have an office team that is phenomenal. I know we all have, wonderful admins working in our buildings. And I am fortunate to have a marketing and enrollment coordinator, and she does most of our communication through our weekly email news blast. And one of the things I've noticed, what we've noticed as a community, is that we are fortunate to have two parishes that support our little school. And one of them right here on campus, St. Nicholas, is largely Hispanic. And so we were wondering why not more families from St. Nicholas weren't necessarily choosing us for education. And perhaps those are hurdles that have to do with could be anything really from just being super comfortable in your public school to not having an awareness of the Catholic school associated with the parish. But also, as Elise mentioned, oftentimes they might speak a different language at home. And because it is largely Hispanic, and we are really focusing this year on how the largest group of Catholics in the world are Latino families in the entire world. That's your population that's the strongest. So we've really tried to make sure every item of communication that leaves our school is in both languages, and very much equitable. Like sometimes you see the English first and then the Spanish. We try to make sure that there's really no front or back, that it's not saying which one is more important or more prevalent. When we used to go to our door, some of the signage or information at the door would be in English first in big letters and in tinier letters in Spanish. We've done away with that. Everything is much more equitable. And we've had more images of Our Lady of Guadalupe, for example, in front and back and around our school. So when families walk or drive by in the neighborhood or on their way to church, they see that we're a welcoming community that values that Hispanic heritage. And that has been a really huge shift for us. And it's brought us families. And more importantly, it's brought us an authenticity and a partnership that's gone deeper with our church, which has been exciting.
That's great. Yeah, great suggestion on ways to keep all families involved and engaged in the school community. Being consistent about communication too can really help parents know when to check what information. So for example, a school could use social media to highlight positive activities in the school, student accomplishments, or a specific class that's been working on a specific project. The school could then use a standard weekly newsletter for general communications, maybe a downloadable calendar that automatically updates so that they can keep track of those events. Either way, having communication that families can expect consistently will really help them with those expectations and know what to check when.
We try to do a lot on building a culture of joy around our school as well. And we use social media for that, really not only for the big things, but even for the little day-to-day things that are part of our culture that are important, but people may take them for granted, like prayer and pledge that we say every morning. When students come down and they share something on the announcements that they're proud of, we try to snap a picture and we do a little, line or two about what this means for our school, for our student, for our community. And those are really nice ways to highlight parts of the school that maybe parents aren't seeing as frequently as they used to when they were here every day. Since access has changed ever so slightly with the ever-changing protocols, it's really important to get some of those day-to-day things out there and present, and let people know that those things haven't gone away just because perhaps parents don't see them themselves. So we want to bring those things home.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. When it comes to communications, trying to use email sparingly and call parents if the answer to the question or concern is more complex. And trying to make use of office hours if you can. We know as principals, you're inundated with emails and requests and communications, but really trying to keep office hours and keep some personal time and having a cutoff time for answering emails. So for example, not emailing people at 2 a.m. if you can avoid it.
Yes, yes.
Also calling parents to praise their child and talk about what they've done well. There's a complex problem or you receive a complex email, try to call the parent to discuss the problem so that things don't get lost in translation through those long email exchanges. And I know, Molly, you had some really great suggestions around this too, as some of the things that you do.
I like to share the tricks of the trade that were given to me that have been helpful and passing those along. These are not my own ideas, but boy, do I enjoy using them. My pastor and I, when we looked at my year last year to do my evaluation, one of the things we agreed on is that as much as we communicate from our school out, and we really do, a lot of the communication for all of us leaders right now has been taken over by COVID. And so sometimes some of the other things go by the wayside. So I have a sticky note by my phone that says, have you communicated it? And I look at it every day. So as I'm working on a project and I put it to the side to start something new, I always look at that and think, who have I told? Who have I not told? Who still needs to know? And then firing out the right amount of communication and timing that kind of like little bits at a time to keep people interested and aware of the updates. As far as praising a child, I really think it's in everyone, teacher, leader, best interest is that we really do call parents every once in a while with just the positive, especially with our new families. I try to call once a week on a new family to introduce myself and usually share a little anecdote about something fun that happened with their student at school. And those things go so far because you're really opening the door to making a connection with that new family. But also, when you have to make a phone call down the road, for example, and then maybe it's a more challenging or more difficult conversation, that family already knows that you already see the good in their child. You already see God in their child. And so by having that groundwork, you really kind of can build on that, and there's trust. That's a big one. And then also, Elise, your point about for short answers, call if the answer is more complex. Sometimes you'll get an email from a parent that's really detailed and super long and obviously very important to the person that wrote it. What I like to do sometimes is just fire back an email that says, you've given me a lot to think about. I've received your email. I would love a couple of days to do my homework and get you the information you need. When's a good time for me to call you? And that really does two things. It acknowledges the request and puts parents at ease that you've got the information, but it also buys you a little bit of time to talk to teachers, to make sure you've got all the information. And usually between the clicking send on that email and you getting back to them, it diffuses a little bit because people, if they're upset or they're anxious or they're sad or they're worried, it's calming. So I have found those to be really helpful when interacting with parents via email.
Yeah, absolutely. All great suggestions. Um, and, we also think about meeting individual family needs in that vein as well. And, maybe there's a family that needs additional or different types of communication. We talked a little bit about families who maybe have a language challenge, or maybe they don't have internet access or reliable internet access, or maybe there's somebody that you know of who needs a bit of a heads up if there's something going on. Whatever it is, just kind of being aware of any communication challenges there might be for specific families and really helping them get the information they need helps leaders be proactive and manage those community expectations at large.
There's a really good example of this that's happening to me this year that I didn't really expect, but it's been so positive. I have three families that were with us. I've only been in this role 3 years, so I only kind of know my school in COVID. But this family was with me these families were here my first year. And then last year they made the choice to homeschool. There's a lot of anxiety around COVID. And then they returned to us this year. And what I did with all three of these mamas is, without giving any personal information away, whenever I have a COVID case, I text those three mamas individually and say, just a heads up, we've had a positive case of COVID. Communication is about to come out. I didn't want you caught off guard. And it's not giving any personal information that they're not going to get in 5 minutes. And that has been so positive because they then go to the computer and they're not shocked. They don't overreact. They know it's coming. They can sit down quietly, read the information. And I really kind of thought about that. And I'm so glad. And I'm still doing it. I mean, we don't have a lot of cases, thank goodness, but the one or two that we've had bubble up, that has been really helpful for those parents, because I know that's a source of anxiety more than the typical family shows me. And I want them to trust us. And they came back to us because they trust us. So I really want to maintain that.
Yeah, that's such a great example and a great point, especially with all that we're dealing with now and being proactive and getting out ahead of the communications. I'm sure is very, very helpful for that family and for you as well.
Absolutely, because it takes, then that's one less meeting or worry or call that I have to take from a family where this doesn't really necessarily affect them in a serious way. But because we've got a relationship now, they know and they trust me. And if they don't hear from me, they know it's not impacting them. And
Mhm.
we've been able to kind of welcome their families back now. And there hasn't been that level of angst I was anticipating because they know they can trust the communication.
That's great. That's great. And this kind of it really ties into getting ahead of those potential challenges. So anything we can do to be proactive, planning ahead, knowing the needs of the community will really help effectively communicate with everyone. And making sure that that crisis management plan is updated, that there's a communication tree known to everybody in the community so that they know what to expect if there's an emergency or a time of crisis. And then having clear policies and procedures around how to interact and handle those crises really help with that consistency and calm. And as you mentioned, the level of trust too that families have with the community as well.
I think that's really important. And it can be as simple as sending out, if you use one of those, we use Directory Spot, and within seconds, I can send out, I don't abuse it because I want them to always read that when it comes. But for example, I can say, hey, we had a fire drill today. We all got out of the building in 2.5 minutes safely and quietly. It was such great practice. I'm so proud of our Panthers. And then parents know, hey, she had a fire drill. That's great. I know that they're practicing those things. Or when we made this switch not to do those closed door slash active shooter drills because of COVID, huddling everyone in a corner just for practice is risky right now. And explaining to parents on curriculum night, this is why we're not doing that practice right now. It's not that we're not talking about it, and teachers are completely prepped on what to do, and we've talked through it with our students in the classroom, but we're not going to huddle together for 30 minutes unnecessarily and risk exposing everybody when we can just walk through the importance of the steps and we communicate that. So when a parent doesn't hear, we didn't do one of those drills this year, why aren't we practicing that? Well, there's a reason and we're doing it differently. And I think as long as parents know that, then it's they can say, oh yeah, I remember that. And they feel considered and they feel involved and they're participating in the child's safety protocols at school.
That's great. That's a great suggestion for that. And then really thinking about ways to empathize with parents and relate with parents as a parent if you can. I'm not a parent, Molly is, but if that's something you can do, feel free to do that. If you can't though, and I'm somebody who can't, I do work with parents to reassure them and really help them to see that I had their child's best interest at heart and worked with them to develop a plan to follow up on any concerns that they had and make sure that there's clear communication with those parents with expectations, clear follow-ups so that you can show that you're really addressing those issues. I would work with families and talk to them, listen to them, making sure I take notes, talk about the action plan, tell them exactly when I was going to follow up, and then they made sure that I did. And really keeping that consistency in that their issue was heard and addressed was really very helpful.
I think even when you're finishing a phone call or finishing a meeting, either in Zoom or in person, just to end the conversation by saying to the parent or the guardian, um, I want to make sure that there's not anything else you need me to know about that you maybe didn't get a chance to say that's bothering you or that's worrisome for you, just so I can be mindful of it. And maybe not now, maybe you'll think of it in a week. Just know that the door's open and you can come back to me with it. I've found that when I sit in on a meeting with parents, whether it's a conference or whether it's meeting to talk about a child's challenges or their exceptionalities and working to strengthen those, I find that sitting next to the parents is really important, because if you're at a table and it's just the teachers on one side and the parents on the other, it can feel like an us and them, even if it's not at all. And so I'll get up and sit on the other side with the parents, because the teachers trust me and they know me and we've got a relationship. But my going over there helps me, even with a geographical sense, connect the two worlds, home and school, because without that, you don't have anything. That's the most important acknowledgement, that their child's first teacher is the parent. And when you're a parent yourself, it doesn't make you a better educator by any stretch. It just makes you a different one. So whenever I've had to have a tricky conversation, or a parent calls me and they're going bananas about something that I'm really not seeing as quite as big of a deal as perhaps a parent is, my kids are Charlie and Lucy. So immediately I go to, this is somebody's Charlie, this is somebody's Lucy. And that helps me put myself right in their shoes, because if I'm not feeling the urgency, I need to. I need to sit in that with them and be in community with them so that I can help them come out of that. And I won't know that until I'm where they are. So these are just a couple of ways to maybe think about doing that and building that trust.
That's a great point. You just reminded me something too. When I was
Sure.
principal, I had a round table in my office, and I always tried to have those meetings around the round table again, so it's not an us
Beautiful.
versus them. And I always tried not to be at my desk at all. Like I always moved when I had those meetings. So again, I think that's such a great point of
Yes.
showing solidarity
Yes.
and really wanting to make sure to have that connection in those
Well,
meetings.
and even with kids, like when a student gets sent to the
Yes.
office for a choice, I come out from behind my desk and I've got
Mhm.
two chairs on the other side, and I sit in one and the child sits in the other, so that we're on the same team.
Mhm.
I think it's less intimidating. I think it's a nice way to kind of show that you're there as a resource first, to help a student kind of get out of a jam in a way that's effective and a learning experience, but is also safe for that student to take risks and try to and grow in an area where maybe there's a deficit. So I think seating is hugely important.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and and now we wanted to just take a couple of minutes to talk about some ways to engage faculty and staff as well. And and again, this is obviously huge for the smooth operation of the school, making sure that faculty and staff are on board with communications. Really keeping a consistent weekly newsletter for staff so you can update as needed, and then making sure to share your schedule as well. And Molly, you have some really great suggestions on this and how you communicate with your staff too.
So I'm pretty similar, Elise. I have a weekly e-blast that goes out to parents. And on the same day, I have a weekly, like week at a glance e-newsletter. For it's a template. So my teachers know exactly how it looks every time it comes out. And I always tell them it's an organic document. So they should revisit it during the course of the week, for like, I do updates in colors. They know if something's changed. We just started something new this year called the Team Huddle. And so every Thursday morning, because my communication goes out on Thursday afternoons for both parents and faculty, I call my teachers down to the stairs in the middle of our building. I use really creative music. This year, I'm using the Chicago Bulls, starting lineup music. And I put it on and I get onto the loudspeaker and say, "Come on, Pope John, come meet me on the stairs." And they come down and we do anything from announcements for that day, or we do shout outs where the teachers honor one another. They honor their students, which is great. They'll talk about something positive that happened with a child they've been trying to reach or connect with. And it's been fun for me to see, because my teachers are now running with it. So I've got teacher leaders on my building team, and they'll say like, "Hey, I want to announce the new Halloween costume idea for faculty this year. Can I share it at the huddle?" And I'm like, yes, they're using the language. They want to participate in it. They're making it theirs. There's some ownership there. So those kinds of communications are super important. And really at the end of the day, I know all principals know this, but when you're a teacher, those kiddos are your classroom. And you do everything in your power to support them. And when you become a principal or an admin, your classroom becomes your teachers. So I have to fill them up so they can take care of our kids. And so there's a lot of fun and creative ways to do that. I think we're going to get there in a second. But
Mhm.
one of them is just making communication that people look forward to, that they want to be a part of, that they feel like it's something that they're being invited to. I think that's really an important way to kind of start and growing that, so that people look forward to hearing from you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Those are all really great suggestions. And there's some others too. One of them's morning check-ins. So when I was a principal, I would walk the building every morning and just check in with my teachers and say hi. And it was their choice. If they just wanted to say hi back and continue their work, that was awesome. But sometimes they had something that they knew was coming up that they wanted to let me know about that was going on in the classroom. And so I'd stop and have that conversation with them, but it was never about performance and it was always dictated by them. And that was just really helpful for me to be able to get a pulse on the school and know what to expect during the day. In some cases, of course, there's other things where you're not going to know what to expect, and that's part of the fun. But and any praise or encouragement you can give to staff is also really helpful. Any kind of positive post-it notes you can give to them. I had little stars that I would have. I'd write the name on the front, and then I'd write a little something on the back, just if I saw something positive throughout the week, and try to put those in mailboxes. That was great. So anything that you can do that can help with praise and encouragement. But really, keeping that pulse and being able to visit those classrooms and keep a sense of what's going on is obviously really, really helpful with communication.
We're going to try a new one this week that I heard from somebody else. Again, not my idea, but a fun one to share is that I'm going to find a rock somewhere, a sizable rock, and I want to paint it, have it say "You rock," and I want the staff to give it to each other at the huddle every week. So really a way for them to acknowledge each other and say thank you for like someone helping them with something or something they noticed in somebody else. I think that's so contagious. That positivity is so contagious, more contagious than COVID. So the more we can do that and model it and then let them run with it, it becomes so authentic and fabulous.
Yeah, that's great. That's another great suggestion. And really being able to give as much information as you can about a situation. We all know as principals that there are things that you can't say. There are things that you have to keep to yourself at all times, but giving them as much information as possible about a situation is always helpful. Addressing and resolve issues that arise, and listen and just make sure everybody's everybody's heard, and not being afraid to have a little fun. I think that's part of it too. I think so much of it, so much of being a principal was so much fun, where just hearing from the kids and hearing some of the stories and the things that they said was always a joy. And so being able to be in those classrooms with the kids and see them and interact with them is so much fun.
We have a new counselor this year who's just a dynamo, and she's a product of the Catholic schools. Her kids went through Catholic schools, and she loves Halloween. Like, some people really like Halloween. She loves Halloween. And so I came into my office one day and she had blown up one of those inflatables. It's like the Scream, the painting of the woman who's like, oh, it's sitting in my office at my desk, which, is hilarious. Then I put it in the lounge. Then someone else ran with it and put it in like someone's classroom. Then it turned up in like a workroom. And I loved that it came from a staff member, not from me. And it took hold. And people were having fun. And one of the faculty members actually said to me, "This is so much fun." And then she was being kind of tongue in cheek and said, "I remember fun. This is great, because we've been so serious, and we've had to be, because these things we're dealing with are life and death, literally and figuratively. And so when you can find some levity and enjoy each other, and then children see adults enjoying working together, that is magic. So that's we need to do that more and more.
Absolutely. And I think really just kind of last thing that we wanted to leave you with is just really being yourself and finding your own leadership voice and who you are as a leader, and being able to express that. And it's the same as a teacher too. As a teacher, everybody has their own personality and persona, and really letting that shine and letting yourself shine as a leader too is something that's really important. Molly, I know you do a great job with some of the things that are just very you, like the ukulele and all sorts of things.
That's a lot of fun. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
The thing is, if you can't be yourself at work, and I think, I know this to be true. Where I came from in the public schools, I was very fortunate and I learned a lot and I use those things every day. There's nothing wrong with that experience. But when I discovered Catholic education and realized that I could be Molly and with my faculty, with my families, and it's funny, I have a teacher that's a little bit buttoned up in the middle school and he's very serious. And we've grown very close. We work really well together. But in the beginning, he wasn't quite sure what to make of Dr. Cinnamon. And I was on the loudspeaker doing prayer and pledge. And on Friday mornings, we play music and the kids love that. And they make requests and it's great. And I kind of do a little voiceover while I'm playing the music, like, hey, it's Friday. We've had a great week. We're looking forward to the weekend. Volleyball team's playing tonight. And like, I just let out little announcements with the music in the background. And one day he came up to me and said, Molly, in the beginning, I wasn't quite sure about this like DJ routine that goes on Friday mornings, but he said the kids were laughing, watching me laugh at you, like how much fun you were having. And he said, guys, I have to tell you something. That's authentically Dr. C. That's who she is, like on and off the court. That's who she is. And like, to me, there's not a higher compliment because it is for real. And when you can find a place where you can be yourself, this work is too hard and too important not to be authentic. And there's days it's not as easy as others, but any chance you can to show who you are, how much you love, how deeply you care, what matters to you, that's the stuff that trickles down and your staff takes hold, your students and families and parishioners grab it. So it's important.
And you touched on this earlier, and I think, I think the opportunity for us as Catholic educators is we get to really be authentically ourselves because we can share our faith. We can share our faith with each other. We can share our faith with our students, and we can really nurture and grow the whole person and the whole child. And we have that unique opportunity as Catholic educators, and it's something that we can really grow and develop and share.
Well, and I think if you're not a lifelong Catholic educator, like I said, I'm kind of late in the game discovering this beautiful thing. But I'll tell you that when I was growing up, like you didn't really talk about religion. It was kind of almost, I'm 51, so dates me a little bit, but it was almost impolite to talk about your faith, talk about politics, talk about, things like that. And here at school, to talk about your faith with children, or even as we get this influx of new little ones who've come to us from the public school, perhaps, or different places because of the pandemic, we do a lot of talking about faith traditions. Like, hey, do you use candlelight in your faith tradition? Because we use it in ours. Do you use prayer in or meditation in your faith tradition? We use it in ours. Kind of bringing people together with what they have, the commonalities of faith, is so powerful, even if it's different, or there's a family that celebrates, being Jewish and being Catholic, or, there's all sorts of combinations, but it's what makes us beautiful. So that intimacy and sharing that with other people is really powerful.
Yeah, that's great. It's such a wonderful opportunity and such a gift to be able to be a Catholic educator.
Right on.
So we're just wrapping up today, and just a quick review. We talked a little bit about culture and creating that strong family environment, really helping to build trust and lead everybody through any kind of crises that might happen. Family engagement, so wanting to make sure that we engage our families and make sure that they feel informed and comfortable, and knowing the types of communication that they need will really help solve some challenges before they even begin. And being able to engage our staff too, and informing them with consistency and transparency, again, will help them address any challenges that they might have. And so thank you so much for watching our webinar today. And if you do have any questions, our email addresses are here. So feel free to contact us with any questions or anything. We both love talking about leadership. So
we sure do.
So, yeah. Great.
Well, and I'll tell you, there's been times before where I've had this really special opportunity, and I want to thank Elise for inviting me to the table because I love working with her. But I'll tell you, this is real. You can reach out to us. I've had other opportunities where I've been on webinars, or I've been just kind of someone as a participant on a panel, and I actually have people have followed up with me, and it's a great opportunity for professional fellowship, and it's a great chance to connect schools. So please don't be shy. I'm doing it every day. I'm happy to share ideas, and I'm always happy to learn from other people. So it's the real deal when we say you can reach out to us.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the webinar today. And we do hope to hear from some of you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good day.